Go.
Hey, everybody. So we did brainwaves for materialization or working brainwaves for materialization. I never get the names of the classes right. So it was a 2.0. I loved the first version of it, but I really love the second version of it. So let's go ahead and share experiences, ask questions. You can unmute yourself or type in, and with whatever time we have left, we'll do a little bit of a practice. So go ahead and fire away.
And you can unmute yourself. You can type into the chat. Raise your hand. I think more people want to do defense mechanism stuff. No, I'm just kidding. I was thinking brainwaves, but everyone's quiet on this end.
Okay. So let's go to page 10, where we start to talk about the materialization process. Let's just kind of go through and revisit some of this. And it's just another opportunity to do materialization. So if you have a question as we're doing this process, I mean, that's kind of what this session's for. So go ahead and feel free, but as of right now, let's go ahead and pull out the blend called action. You're going to pull out the blend called action. Now, like the idea of materialization, you could take two different pathways. And here we're utilizing intuition, which is spontaneity, essence, is problem solving, it's innovation, basically the ability to go beyond the senses, right? Anything intellectual is of the senses, and it's also of intellect. And so when we do it from intellect, we got to know, like, okay, what am I going to do? What are the steps? How am I going to do this? Can I do this? And there's a time and a place for that. But if you're anything like me, part of the thing that would happen when I would do materialization processes that involved the intellect, where I would write things down, or, you repeat something over and over again, in my mind, in the intellect, I could come up with all the reasons why it wasn't going to work. I didn't even have to think about it. My mind would just go bam, 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 right? And so then what I started to try to materialize was infused into that process. And that doesn't happen to everybody, but it definitely happened to me. And I had also been trained in this other way of doing materialization, which is how we do it here. And this is based on, intuition, going beyond the senses. You're engaging more of the creative processes. Anytime you go beyond the senses, you're starting to engage higher creativity, the creative flow, the creative processes. You're innovating. You're you're pioneering something. You're breaking out of the normal repetitive patterns, right? And you know, if the repetitive patterns were working for you, this is my thought on this, or my direct experience, I should say. If the repetitive patterns were working for me, I wouldn't need to be doing the materialization process, so that I was sitting down and having to do materialization is that repetition, all my thoughts, all my actions, all my behaviors were not producing the results I was looking for, bottom line. And so I need to go beyond the senses. I need to engage this creative process. And so, a lot of the different things that we do where we sit and we observe something and we concentrate until we start to have, a bit of an expansion or a bit of greater levels of awareness starting to arise. Concentration gives birth to awareness, right? And so, how to take that and run with it and really amplify it to the point where we can start to produce results. And the thing that's really beautiful about doing it in this way is we don't have to define it. We don't have to work out all the nitty-gritty details. We just focus our attention, right? We focus our concentration. We let awareness start to come in. We do the materialization breath, and we're anchoring light there. And light is the fuel for the creative processes. Light is the fuel for the intuitive mind. So you've given it a task and you've given it fuel to start going down the processes. So if we look at it from that point of view, then what is the potential that gets in our way, right, as we go through and we do that process? If we're engaging in an intuitive process, again, still the thing that can be the stumbling block is our opinions, our perceptions, the repetition of intellect. Intellect is going to come into play at some point, but we want to refine it with this aspect of going through and doing the materialization breath, anchoring light, and enhancing intuition. We're engaging the creative process, right? And so with that, by doing the materialization breath, you're starting to refine the different aspects of will, right? A lot of times we might come from a point of view of um, uh, like physical will, like just survival oriented drives. This would be very lower nature drives. Then we come to the emotional will, right? And the emotional will a lot of times does things through conflict. It has constancy of aim, but it's about overcoming obstacles and uh, kind of being committed to something in the face of the difficulties that comes up, which is good, you know. And then the mental will comes into play. And the mental will has a lot more to do with being strategic, maybe not necessarily engaging in conflicts, but trying to line yourself up so that you produce a result as quickly as possible. So you put a strategy, you put a long-term process in play, right? Then you have the spiritual will, which is associated with the crown. And with the spiritual will, you're really aligning to something outside of that normal everyday repetition, right? So on one level, you could say, yes, I'm aligning with the soul, which is true. You could say, I'm aligning with intuition. You could say, I'm aligning with something bigger than myself. That is also true. But you're also beginning to align with different ways of thinking, right? Like if you think about it, you don't think the same way through the whole day, through the whole week, and through the whole month, through the whole year. Like, you might be at work, you think a particular way. You get around your family at the end of the day, the kids, whatever, you think a little bit differently. You get around some old friends, you think a little bit differently. You're at work, you think a little bit differently. It's Sunday morning, you think a little bit differently, right? We want to harness different aspects of ourselves to produce a result, right? And to get out of our own way, right? And to take it even deeper, what begins to happen is, we talk about planetary energies, for example. Like, the sun has, something to do with this, and the moon has something to do with that. And Jupiter has something to do with, certain tendencies that we might have. But another way that you could say that is it's a way of defining different kinds of consciousness within us. There's an aspect of the sun within us, the consciousness of the sun. And it's more of a reflection of the sun. It's not like the sun itself, but it's like we have these tendencies that we would associate with the sun. We have these tendencies that we associate with the moon. We have these tendencies that associate with Mercury or Jupiter or Venus, right? And so the idea is that is a way of even being able to like evoke those kinds of consciousness to direct it at, either inner development or outside targets, outside goals. Here we're just figuring out the idea of being able to touch on something that's bigger than us, bigger than our repetitive mind, bigger than our intellect, bigger than the things that we do every day. And we're trying to bring something from the ethers and we're trying to bring it uh, into form, right? We're starting to practice that aspect of being able to go outside of the senses, outside of our normal everyday life, and to bring something in. We're just trying to open up the pathway, right? We're not really focused on is this of this kind of consciousness or that kind of consciousness. That comes, but it comes a little later, you know? And I would say doing a practice of materialization is a way for us to touch the things that we always wanted, but intellect kind of keeps out of our reach. Because if intellect is always doing repetition and is maintaining the things that happen, then it's always kind of got its foot more in the past than the present or the future, right? And nothing wrong with having our foot in the past. But I don't want to watch reruns for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? Like I'm kind of sick of my personal reruns. I want new things. I want new experiences. I want to grow. I want to evolve. I want to be able to step outside of myself and learn something more about me, you know? And the materialization work is um, a great way to achieve that. So it doesn't always have to be about money, and it doesn't always have to be about a goal, and it doesn't always have to be about a relationship. My first 10, 12 years of doing the version of this materialization breath was actually about my spiritual growth and being devotional to certain deities and connecting to one particular deity that you know, even when people would go, I have a devotional practice with, such and such a deity. I was like, when I was young, I was like, yeah, me too. I don't really know what that means, but I feel some affinity, but what do I do? Uh, I love that being, but I don't know, do I? Like, it's like I like the idea of it. And so it's a way of connecting with something. And so what I'd like you to do is just reflect on something that you would like to bring into your consciousness, something you'd like to bring into your life, something that you would like to begin to experience. I would say you could even use this for learning. Say you go, okay, I want to be really good at geometry. I want to be really good at, I don't know, some project, some craft, or, some aspect that you want to do at work, or, you know, you sit and observe it and you do the materialization breath. Intuition will innovate and learn. It will problem solve. You don't have to know how to do something. You just need to know how to direct that creative flow. Like, where is it going to go? Where am I going to direct it? Like, turn it on and then direct it, right? So think of something that you'd like to achieve, something you'd like to bring in, something you'd like to shift, whatever that might be, even if it's something you would like to heal, something in your body, some old pattern, something with a person, some tendency that we have. Okay, let it go. Bring the action blend to your chest. You're going to go chin down. Inhale, hold your breath, up, exhale. Down, inhale, 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 up, exhale. And then just be still. You're just being still. And again, that same goal, that same target, that same thing you're wanting to bring in. Hmm. You're observing, Let it go. Bottle to the chest, chin down. 8 or 9 of the materialization breaths. Do it at your own pace. You're just being still. Now, you're going to pull out your blend inertia. Inertia. Okay, we're going to do the 4 quadrants of the body. This is about keeping a uniform motion in play, not getting thrown off by the negativity that might come up in the environment or in us, like to keep the motion moving, right? Keeping the creative process flowing. So you're inhaling, your awareness is on the left side of your body, left side of your face and neck, your left shoulder, ribs, your left hip, all the way down the outer leg to the left outer ankle. front side of the body. Your awareness is on the front side of the body, your face and throat, your chest, abdomen, down the front of your legs to the tops of your feet. The right side of your body, the whole right side of your body, your right side of your face and neck, your right shoulder, your right hip, down the outer leg to the right outer ankle. And the back side of the body, the whole back side. Your awareness is on the back side of the body, back of the head and neck, your whole back, down the backs of your legs to your heels. And then pause and be still. Pause and be still. Okay. This last piece is about integration, concretizing it. So you're going to find your integration blend. Begin inhaling. Your awareness is on the brain. You're still in the brain. You're doing nice, long, slow, deep breaths. Your awareness is on the spine. You're taking nice, long, slow, deep breaths. The brain and spine both at the same time. The brain and soles of your feet both at the same time. Okay, as you inhale, your awareness is up above your ankle. As you exhale, down into the earth. Okay, just let it go. Just be still for a moment. Okay, so let's talk about it again. I'm going to use like an analogy a little bit, right? Because like as we do inertia, like I'm going, oh, universal motion, momentum, and everything. But think of it like this. We have negative thoughts in us from our past that we don't want to, as we try to materialize this thing, we don't want it to pull us off our creative process or our creative flow. So that is an aspect, but also the other aspects are other people have thoughts, other people have opinions, other people have different goals and agendas that might also pull our creative flow off track, right? So this idea of inertia is to not absorb anything that's negative, and negative is just of the form or of intellect. We're setting something in motion. So as these things go, hey, psst, come over here. Hey, I got this idea. And then you get a little bit past that, and then there's like, hey, I got this really, really amazing thing. You should come over here. And then you get a little bit past that, and then why are you doing that? Like you shouldn't do that. People don't do these things. Whatever it is, right? Then the last piece is integration. It is integration back into the form. It is integration, like you've gone out, you've had this experience, you've gone beyond the senses. You go, hey, I want to set this in motion. I want this amazing thing to come in. I've always wanted to do this. Like I've always wanted to be, right? So then you go out and you have like all these explorations of what that is and you put it in motion. The integration is now integrating that idea into the intellect, right? So you're all spacey, and then you come back, and then finally, you're bringing it back into the intellect. And then the intellect has the past experience because you've gone off and you've done your little dreaming or whatever you want to call it, creative process. And now it goes, I have this experience that I can draw upon. It wasn't like that you went to a school or you read a book or something. It had direct experience, but it was in the ethers, right? So then you bring it back into form, and the intellect goes, "Yeah, I could probably do this. I've had an experience with this before." Right? So now, if your issue is that, like when it comes back time for the integration, if you're having a little bit of hard time, you can do, I would say, do two things, but together, right? At night, use valerian or vetiver. Valerian would be the first choice. And the reason why you're using valerian is it's a restorative. So if you've expand and it kind of like blows your mind, it blows intellect, and intellect is like, whoa, what was this? This was crazy, right? At some point, you'll work your way back to it, but it might take you a little bit of time, right? So valerian at night will help to restore intellect so that you can expand out of that conscious awareness again. And then as you come back, you can restore the intellect, but now it's the new upgraded intellect. You force fed it the experiences that you wanted it to have rather than the conditioning and the crap that has happened in the past, right? So you're kind of like rebooting this idea of your intellect. Then in the morning when you wake up, you use rosemary, especially rosemary verbena. You just do a bunch of inhalations, right? And again, it brings it further like forth into your conscious everyday mind, right? I didn't make it a part of this class. I almost did, but I was like, let's process this concept first, right? But then as time goes by, you can enhance it if you're having difficulties. You don't necessarily need to, but if you're having difficulties, valerian at night, vetiver's a second choice, and then rosemary verbena in the morning, right? Now think of it like this. Think of it like this. You want something from Amazon. You go on, da, 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 I want it in sparkly blue and da, 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 da. You order it, you put it in motion, right? That is the action phase. So then somebody puts it in a box and off it comes to your house, right? So that is the inertia. You don't want that box broken up. You don't want people tearing into that box. You don't want that box to get lost. You don't want that box to get rerouted. You don't want it to hang out in a facility, 2 hours from your house and have it arrive, 30 days later. You want it to be in motion to to get it to your house, right? So that is the inertia component. Then somebody comes and it drops it off at your front door. You open up your front door, you take it in, and you go, I got my sparkly blue thing. And you open up the box, and that is the integration, right? So it's just like going on Amazon and ordering something. Action, inertia, integration. And the more that we get this idea, the more that we begin to harmonize how intuition and intellect become like friends with each other and they work with each other. They become allies or comrades with each other. So we still have a little bit of time. Let's open it up to questions or experiences. Um,
Give me 1 second so you can unmute yourself. Yeah, go ahead, Barbara.
hey, Barbara.
I love the analogy, and I'm really excited about the two extra pieces you just gave us. And
With the valerian and the rosemary.
yeah, yeah. So over the weekend, I think it was on Sunday when we did this practice and at the inertia phase, and I was using hyssop because my oils have disappeared.
Sure.
But I had that experience of these two core wounds coming up and being very present while I was doing that.
Hmm.
Remember? So
Yes, I do.
this time in that piece, my brain went to this distraction about financial management, which to my intellect didn't seem at all connected to my goal, but it just came up as this distraction, which I thought was pretty interesting.
But it was in the inertia phase or it was in the integration phase?
It was in the inertia phase.
Yeah, I would say that's probably, like you said, some sort of distraction.
Yeah.
It's like an old fear, or, for me, a lot of my fears were given to me. Like, here you go. And so some of these things are, I should do this, I have to do this, I need to do this. If I don't do this, something bad's gonna happen. It's stuff like that. And I would say that's probably what that's about. Like, you got to be practical if you're going to do this, or you got to, you know, I would say the first piece is almost like kind of dreaming, like I'm going to just dream big. And then you're kind of putting it in motion. And so you're still kind of in that dream phase where those kind of things, if they're arising, are probably more of an opposition or a distraction rather than like a reality. Like in the integration phase, as it integrates and you sit there and you start kind of processing it and you go, you know what? This has to do with, like, I need a budget. I need to watch my finances. I need to be, stable in the way that I approach this. I would say that is probably you being practical, or the thing that's necessary to bring it into form. Like, it might even be seeing what's going to happen down the line. But if it's in the action or the inertia phase, it's probably more a distraction.
That's what it felt like. And I
Yeah,
just, like, on the
yeah,
surface, it didn't connect at all. And I thought,
yeah,
okay, this is
yeah,
just trying to pull me away
yeah,
or from what I'm
yeah.
trying not to be
It's
pulled away
somebody
from.
trying to get into your box. Like, you know what I mean? They're trying to pull out whatever you have in your box. And, think about how many times that you go, hey, I got this really great idea. And somebody goes, you know, say you go, I've always wanted a little puppy, whatever kind of puppy. And you tell a friend and they go, yeah, my cousin had one of those puppies. And then they tell you some horror story or something that went horribly wrong. And it's like, they're not even really doing it on purpose. It's just their intellect goes, don't do that because I've had bad experiences. So, it's just repetition and maintenance. And so we're exposed to that a lot,
So
like a lot.
the distraction seemed sort of personal and practical, but not in the phase that it would have been practical. But could that
How
be this a disguise of projections from other people?
projections from other people, or projections from other people when you were young?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think weren't you the one that said, like, I have to do it right? I
Yeah, I
can't
have to
remember.
follow the rules in
Have
order
to
to do
follow
that.
rules. Right. It's probably some things in that vein. Like, might not be those two exact things, but it's something like that. Like, um, I'll give my little tiny example is, as I've gotten older, birthdays really don't bother me. But at 30, I kind of had a meltdown. Like, I just, 40, 45, 50, 55, none of it bothered me. 30, I kind of lost it for about 6 weeks, 8 weeks. And I just got in my head, like, if you don't have your act together at 30, you're a bum, you're a loser. Like, I was saying all these things, and I was like, the weird thing about all those things going in my head kind of sounds like my grandparents, and kind of sounds like, a couple other family members, and like it kind of sounds, and I just, over a period of time, I realized their words were echoing in my head, and I didn't even realize it. And then when I kind of realized that, I did a little process, all of it went away. It just went away. But those ideas, those concepts, those opinions sometimes, get installed when we're very young. And until we kind of break them up and flush them out, they're just there silently running their little program. It's like an app that's running that you don't know that it's running, but it's chewing up a bunch of data in the brain.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of times we don't know it until we engage the process. Yeah.
Yeah, I can make sense of, I mean, my goal not being supported at all by anybody in that circle when I was young.
Yeah.
But the way it manifested as this other tangentially seeming thing, the curiosity, but I'm sure
Mhm.
it's just tricky at disguising itself.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Okay. I also love let me make it so you guys can hear me just a little better. Just when we were done and you were talking it out a little, and I was like, we had just come from Astara, I was so spacey. I
Right.
was not getting, and
Right.
I kind of feel like when we did the integration, it was like everything from Astara, everything we had just
Right.
done, I
Right.
was
Right.
like, oh my gosh, like it's
It's
physicalizing.
physicalizing. And, like in Astara, like usually what we're going to kind of touch in this session, I kind of touch on it a little bit, some way, somehow in Astara. So we did materialization breath, that mystic vibration thing, and then we came back and, you know,
I'm still a little spacey,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
I mean, I feel
But
excited.
it's like kind of starting to ground
Yeah.
into your intellect.
It, I was kind of thinking, wow, I didn't realize how much I needed integration.
Right.
Like I'm thinking maybe after every like session. Just kind of bring that in. Let me just check really quick. Someone is wondering if there is something other than Valerian or vetiver.
Uh, Vetiver and Valerian mixed together? I mean, I don't know. Like, you're needing a restorative. And even vetiver is like, it's a B choice, really. Like Valerian is kind of the go-to thing there. But I mean, it's still grounding. It's more grounding into the body than it is into the mind, but it would still kind of get it. But Valerian's kind of the go-to thing.
And Robert, we have just a minute, so go ahead.
Hey, Robert,
Hey, Greg.
how'd you do?
So, still somewhat spacey, but came in from Astara. Like, how do I type again?
Right, right, right.
So, as you were talking to Sam and even Barbara, this whole concept of inertia and integration,
Hmm.
how does it relate to the oils we've used before, Amen and Stabilize?
Yeah, a men would be the inertia component, stabilize would be the integration.
Integration.
Yeah.
Are they just different ways of doing it, or why one or the other? What's
They're a little bit less about physical goals and a little bit more about like higher faculties or spiritual aspects. They would still work, but
okay?
it's more about like an angel or my soul energy or the aspect of a deity or some mystical piece or spiritual piece of information that you're trying to bring in, it would
Okay.
still work, but it's like it's same idea, same exact idea.
So inertia and integration work for spiritual as well as
Yeah,
physical, emotional, and mental.
yeah,
And amen and stabilize are more fine-tuned for the spiritual.
yeah. Like I would say inertia and integration are like for the everyday tasks. It would still work for spiritual tasks, but yeah, but
Okay.
otherwise, they're interchangeable.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good. Thank you.
you're so welcome.
Perfect timing.
I hope you guys enjoyed tonight. We will be doing this one again, like either a class, a 1 day thing, or like how we did on Monday with the angels. We're going to be doing more of that where we just say, okay, in a couple of days, we're going to do. So, yeah, I hope that works for you guys. And thanks for hanging out and joining us. And we're going to move over to the mystical practice, and it's Kartika night. So, if you're one of those that has a Kartika, let's move over to the next stream.